What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. Anyways, we gave the Commanders a B+ for drafting Josh Connerly Jr. in the first round, Trey Amos in the second, Jalen Lane in the fourth, no third-round pick, remember. Sixth round, Kane Medrano, and then seventh round, Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt. A smaller draft haul here for the Commanders, but we gave him a B+. What'd you think for the Commanders here this year?
Yeah, I think obviously it's got to be looked at in the context of giving up draft capital to get an absolute monster at left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, and then getting Deebo Samuel, who I think gives them another after-the-catch dimension they didn't have enough of last year. And then you look at the draft class, look, 22nd in pass blocking grade, 30th in coverage grade. I think it's smart to address those two things with the first two picks if they couldn't trade down. I like Josh Connerly a lot. I had him OT4 in this draft. I think he's got good footwork. He's a smooth pass protector, and I assume they're going to let him compete for the starting right tackle job because nobody's moving Tunsil off the left side, and they've got their offensive line's a little bit in flux right now with Sam Cosmi's injury. You know, maybe Andrew Wiley moves inside. Brendan Coleman's got the flexibility to move inside. They've got options there on an offensive line, but I think Connerly I would expect to compete for that right tackle job, especially if he's ready right now in pass protection like I think he is. And then Trey Amos, that's a steal. That's a steal that they got him late in the second round. He's a guy we thought they could have taken at 29, and I think if you think about Amos and the fact that if he does get this starting job on the outside across from Marshawn Lattimore, the big thing there is moving Mike Sainristil back into the slot, which is his more natural position. He did a nice job on the outside adjusting. He's one of the most competitive players on the team that they have. But if you can get Sainristil back in the slot and this Amos pick works, it actually changes the complexion, I think, of your entire defense, certainly your secondary. So I think they got two really good players there. And then their third pick, Jalen Lane in the fourth round. This is someone I was looking at that I think his production in the NFL could surpass his production in college. He had very, very high separation scores, very high yards after the catch scores. His total production as far as yardage at Virginia Tech wasn't great, but that's really due to Virginia Tech's quarterback situation. Just not a whole lot of accurate passes thrown his way, but he's a dangerous player with a lot of speed. Early on is going to get some return work, especially as a punt returner. And then I think in the same vein of, okay, they got Deebo Samuel for yards after catch, that's what they got Jalen Lane for. He's got home run speed, find a way to get the ball in his hands, I think especially in screens and gadget plays, things like that in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I think Jalen Lane could be a very dangerous piece for him down the line.
I like this draft. I really did. I wasn't as high on some other people, as high as some other people were on Josh Connerly Jr., but he was 30th on my board. They take him, what was it, 30th overall, 29th overall,
29,
whatever it was. So it's like right there. The value was right there. I think it's appropriate. I'm very interested to see how their offensive line is going to work out with Brandon Coleman and obviously Sam Cosmi getting hurt late last year. They have Andrew Wiley as well, but he is on the last year of his contract. What's the short and the long-term plan here? Like, are they going to play Connerly at right guard while Sam Cosmi is hurt and probably rehabbing most of the regular season? If that's the case, are they planning to kick him out to right tackle? If that's the case, what are you doing with Brandon Coleman? Do you want Brandon Coleman to play on that right side line of scrimmage? Would you rather him play on the left and just sort of be behind Laramie Tunsil? What's sort of your decision there on that offensive line? But at least they're getting ahead of the need. I think they were attacking it the way that they needed to with that kind of priority, knowing that Cosmi, one of their best offensive linemen, is going to be out for most of the regular season. So they're making sure they're good to go in the short and the long term. So I like that plan there. I do agree with you completely. Trey Amos, big time steal for me. Somebody who I think is a starting outside corner in this league. Gives you a lot of flexibility with Mike Sainristil, who is clearly just a baller from what we saw last season. Jalen Lane, again, I wasn't as high on Jalen Lane as some other people were. However, for this team specifically, they've got their starting wide receivers in Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, and then it's sort of like Noah Brown's in there, Jalen Lane's in there, Luke McCaffrey's in there. Like, who is going to emerge there as that consistent wide receiver 3? And then it'll probably also be situational with them. So I think that makes sense there, especially with a fourth-round selection. And then Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt is somebody who they needed to get more dynamic at the running back spot. And we even sometimes mocked them Amari and Hampton, like in the first round. That was sometimes the priority when we were creating these draft hauls for the Commanders. But they end up waiting all the way until the 7th round. I do think that they got a really good one, though. Somebody who can complement the guys who are already in that room, somebody who brings a lot of dynamic ability to them. To be honest with you, fresh legs. I know he's probably pissed off about it because he didn't get to play a lot this past season. He only got to play one game because the NCAA ruled him ineligible. It's kind of a long story. From his very first year of college football, he was wearing a number, and then he redshirted, and because he redshirted, they gave that number to somebody else, and then that player played the whole season under that number. So the NCAA said, no, this was your number at the beginning of the season, and we have snaps for this player who played this number. And Jacory was like, that wasn't me. I redshirted. I gave it to somebody else. The NCAA was like, we've already made our decision, too late. So he didn't really get to play a lot this year, but fresh legs because of it. So he might be able to hit the ground running when it comes to training camp. So I do like what the Commanders did, even though it was a smaller class overall.
Yeah, the one rule the NCAA actually enforces, right, in the times that we're living in. That feels a little odd. But the other thing on Andrew Wiley and the offensive line shifting we were talking about is, and I forgot about this, his first 3 years in Kansas City, now this goes all the way back to 2020, he was primarily a guard. So I do think there is a world if Connerly shows them enough that he can start at right tackle, I could see Wiley filling in that right guard spot while Connerly is there at tackle because he at least has experience doing it. I don't think Connerly has any experience at guard in college, so that might work in his favor also if he's trying to win that right tackle job.